So, talking about the Brownlees, let's be honest, no one's going to beat them in London. Is that a fair assumption?
The only people that can beat the Brownlees are themselves. They, their attitude, they're winners at heart. Their attitude, they've got everyone scared to death of them. Everyone is building teams and structures and approaches around the way they race, and it's pretty simple the way they race. In every single discipline, they want to be first. They want to be first out of the water. They want to be first to transition. They want to be first to attack on the bite. They want to be first, and that is an attitude. And unfortunately, for a lot of nations, they don't train that attitude. They think they can train the numbers and build athletes that aren't winners. And just because you can post numbers in a training session, you got to execute. And the Brownlees are the two best executors of races I've seen, and they're winners. And it's going to take a monumental performance by anyone to beat them. If anyone, I'm picking a Russian to do it with that team approach, but I just don't know if they believe they can beat them. And I'm going to go on a limb and say Jonathan might be your first one across the line, and Alistair won't be that far behind him.
You're known as for your mind games, and you're very outspoken, and that's one thing that I think the triathlon club would love about you, is the fact that you will, whatever comes into your mind, you're quite happy to speak it. Is that for them, the Brownlees, that's what they're quite capable of doing as well? It's their intimidatory off the course as well as on the course?
Well, I think it's an attitude. I said that before. They're winners. And the way they enforce their presence nowadays, to some degrees they're bullies, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you find when you're the alpha male and you feel that within a group, then it's natural for you to continue that dominance. And they walk into a race, they move into the tent, they don't line up in the lines, they push in, so get out of the way. And it's not disrespectful. It is to some degree of the other athletes, but it's a mindset that how the hell are these athletes going to beat them when these guys have absolute disdain for the athletes they're racing? And I keep pointing this out, because for me, it's not that I'm an outspoken guy. I always view that there's two sides. There's execution in winning races, and execution comes about by being physically right, and 90% of the time about being right in the head. And there's never enough focus on the mental side of racing, being able to stand up and deliver. We're always focused on the training and hitting numbers, and then there's a disconnect on race day. The Brownlees have it all. They hit the numbers, and they've got it right in their attitude, and they're putting it together. And I think they've come in, they've bluffed the world. They're going to continue to bluff the world because they do it physically, and they do it in the way they hold themselves, and they're just born winners, and they're unique people. Lance Armstrong, born winner. The Brownlees, born winners, and to some degree, I think I've always been that. And then I think you use that it's enabled. People enable you to be an intimidator, and if you allow them to enable it, then you definitely embrace them.
Speaking about the boss, switch back to version 3.0 of Lance. I think we're up to it.
Yeah.
He keeps rebooting himself, but he is back and screaming across the headlines of the Cairns paper up here at the moment where we're sitting. Was you were going to smash him? And again, is that Macca bluff? Is that Macca bluff, or is that you're lining him up? What's in your mind about the best athlete in the world coming to our sport, back to our sport?
Well, Lance Armstrong, on the record, I'm a huge fan. I watched him in cycling and rejoiced his 7.2, as I always felt a connection to Lance, predominantly because he came from triathlon. We have some mutual friends, Kerry Klassen, that I used to ask about his old triathlon days. So when he was performing in the Tour de France, I was pro Lance, and I think his coming back to this sport is the greatest thing that can happen to triathlon ever. And I'm a big supporter of that. But he took a pro card. And as a person who now has to race him, what do I have to get down and pay homage to him? This is my house. This is swim, bike and run. It ain't the Tour de France. Swim, bike and run, and I'm the best in the world at this. And he's a guy who's thrown a challenge out and says, I want to take the Hawaiian Ironman title. What, do I lie down and die, or do I sit there and go, mate, good luck with that, but hey, I'm standing in front of you, mate. I says, this guy. And Lance is a competitor. He's no mug. He's fought many a battle, and he's well and truly prepared to fight mine. But I look at strengths and weaknesses, and I look at myself, and I honestly believe that Lance Armstrong doesn't have a hope in hell of beating me. Now, prove me wrong. Lance, get on a plane, pick a race, and prove me wrong. If it's Kona, let's do it. And if he does, I'll be the first to shake his hand. I said to Craig Alexander in 2009, I don't think you can beat me, mate. and he beat me. I crossed the line. The first person I saw was Craig Alexander, and I said, mate, well done. And it'll be the same with Lance Armstrong. I have the utmost respect, but this is swim, bike and run. This is not 21 days with a team guys around you. This is swim, bike and run, one-on-one, and I'm just as tough as you, mate, and I'm prepared to play that dice anywhere you want to play it.
And of course there's the other 30, 40 pros who are going to be lining up as well, in Kona or wherever it might be, that probably have the same idea, I guess, but at the same time...
Well, I often wonder if they do have the same idea, because a lot of them I sit there thinking, far out, a lot of you guys have, Lance is the biggest celebrity to come to our sport. Sometimes I think, if Roger Federer came to triathlon, we would be tap dancing around him, and Lance was the biggest name in sport for years. And I read the tweets and I read the love fest and I often feel like some of these pros I get embarrassed for. I'm like, come on, man! Like, this guy you have to race him, respect him. I have the utmost respect for him, but he has got you. He's doing to you what the Brownlees do to the ITU guys. Like, you guys are never going to beat him because you're too in love with him. And respect him as much as you can and appreciate what he is. But mate, he's taken a pro car. He's got to run a marathon. He's got to do 180k. He's got to swim, and he's got an amazing team. We saw how he went about his business in the tour, how he revolutionised that sport, and maybe he's going to do the same with ours. And I know one thing, that he wouldn't be here if he didn't think he could win, and I respect that immensely about him. And I'm going to have to be on my A game to beat him, because again, I've said it in the papers. I like to do that. State my intentions. I won't hide behind anything, and I do. I think I can win, and until he proves me wrong, then I'll continue to think that.
Well, last time you stated your intentions in Auburn, that famous interview.
Oh yes, yeah.
It all came good in October, so maybe this is a formula for you.
Yeah, well, hopefully I ratify this weekend in Cairns, and that gives me the chance to potentially race in Kona. We'll look at the block and see how that works out. But just the opportunity for me. And my team has said it, and this is in utmost respect to Lance, the opportunity for me to race probably the greatest endurance, the most famous endurance racer in history, it's a huge opportunity for me. And to be the man who beats him, it can shoot you to stardom. And it could be like our Thriller in Manila. It can be our Rumble in the Jungle. You got an amazing icon like Lance Armstrong. And an athlete like myself or Craig Alexander can take him out. You'll remember this, the guy. Lance brings that attention to that race that you probably wouldn't have got had you just won your fourth or third Ironman title. So it's going to be interesting.
So seeing what you've seen of his racing, he's done a few 70.3s, of course, leading into Nice, which will be his first Ironman. You're quite successful in unpicking the secrets of some of our better pros. Have you looked at his racing and thought there's some deficiencies there?
I've seen huge improvements. I thought his race in Panama was average. Everyone was getting excited about it, but I thought it was a relatively average February race. I thought Texas was, when he walked in Texas, I thought, okay, he's welcome to triathlon, mate. This is tough racing, and he raced a real field there. And then I thought St. Croix was solid, but I was impressed with Florida. Everyone keeps calling Florida a cherry pick, and what I tend to do, but after every one of his races, I'm reading all the reports on it. I'm getting as much information as I possibly can, and I go over the races of years past. It's easy, you just access. And I looked at his Florida results. I looked at the guys who had raced on that course, and I'm able to compare Lance with guys I've actually raced, because I've never raced Lance Armstrong. So for me to find out how to take this guy on, I've got to try and give myself some bearings on just how strong he is, just where he is weak. And his bike was solid, his run was solid. TJ Tollickson, better than that. So TJ's been able to win Ironmans. TJ's competitive in Kona to some degree, but Lance is putting it together very, very quickly. And I'm sitting with a lot of interest to see Nice. As everyone has this tendency to go cherry pick. But you still got to suffer out there for 8 hours, and you've still got to get to a marathon. And the guys who are racing Nice, are solid guys in Nice. And I expect him to do well. I'm going to be interested to see the back end of his marathon. That's where I want to draw a lot of attention. And mate, he's got a smart crew around him, and I have a lot of faith in my crew. And we're learning a lot. The more he races, the more information I have on the man. I'd actually be a little bit more intimidated had he not raced as much, and I'd have nothing to go into Kona on. So the more he races, the bigger the positives are for me.